Centenarians are these groups of people that regularly live to 100 or more all over the globe. And there's 6 or 7 particular groups that I'll focus in on. And we'll talk about what those people do, why do they live to 100 without heart disease, blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, and what do they actually do to get there. So very, very small, very unwell, and I ended up developing all kinds of illness. A chronic asthmatic, hay fever, allergies. I got every cold, every bug, every flu that went around. I was your chronic, classic, sick kid, sick teenager, sick young man, and then sick adult. I just thought they were genetic. You couldn't do anything about it. I thought they were incurable. I was told by the specialist, take the drugs, there's nothing we can do. It's genetic, it's hereditary, we can't do anything about it, son. Just take the drugs. And in terms of the drugs I was using, I was on 16 shots of Ventolin a day. I was on Intel prevention every day. I was on steroid injections regularly, and I was in and out of hospital on breathing apparatus. So I know what it's literally like to think, I wonder if I'm going to live through the day. I know that kind of sickness and what that's like, and that's what gives me the passion to do what I do now, is to teach people about what I've done throughout my life. The passion comes from being so unwell for so long. I thought, okay, well, why don't I look at the other aspects in life, like food, diet, lifestyle, environment, fasting, the longevity studies, these people that live long, healthy lives. And as I started researching that, one of the first things I realized is that there's only 4 causes of disease. There's 4 root causes of disease. The first and most prevalent is diet. The second is lifestyle. The third is environment. And the fourth is genetic. And the interesting thing is when you really start to look at the research, about 97% of our health is diet, lifestyle, and environment. And there's about 3% that dictates genetic disease. So when you start to look at that, you start to go, wow, well, I'm so sick, and I've always been sick, and yet 97% of illness is not about my genetics. Then I can do something about it. And then after about 4 years, I cured everything. So after 4 years, I cured every bug, every cold, every flu, every cough. I haven't had an asthma attack since. I'm now 46, and I'm in better shape now at 46 than I was at 36 or 26. And it took me about 4 years to do it. So how I did it was with regular fasting, with changing my diet, with eating less, cleaning out the bowel, doing all these natural things that I was discovering. Because I really got focused on, I really want to be well. I really want to be well. And I want to be a good dad. I want to be able to get up in the morning without having to take drugs just to get through the day. So how do we all get into our 100s or our 90s without high blood pressure, without diabetes, without obesity, without any lifestyle cancers? How do we do that? And the thing is, groups of people all over the world are doing it every day in large amounts at 10 times higher rates than we do. And it's not genetic. About 60 million deaths a year, 38 million are non-communicable diseases. Now, what do we mean by non-communicable diseases? These are diseases like heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity. Let's just choose the number 1 cause of cancer death on the planet, lung cancer. If I said to you, what causes 90%, that's 90%, of lung cancer cases in the world, what would you say? Cigarettes, right. Now, are cigarettes genetic? No. Are cigarettes a lifestyle choice? Yes. So you can see immediately this is a lifestyle cancer. But then you look at something like liver, and if I say liver cancer, you wouldn't immediately say alcohol. But when you look at the cases and you talk to the doctors and the cancer specialists working at liver units around the world, all they talk about is alcohol. That's all there is to talk about when it comes to liver cancer. Death by liver disease is up 500% since 1984. 500%. What does liver disease do? It kills you. A fatty liver raises your risk of diabetes by 400%. Do you know how much diabetes has grown in the last 25 years? 1,000%. When I was first presenting information on diabetes, I remember in 2004, I presented a study by a group called the World Diabetes Foundation. They said in 2004, and I quote, they predicted that by 2020, there would be 250 million cases of diabetes on the planet. 250 million diabetics. 2004, they said this. Now, where are we now? We're at 2014. So they said this in 2004, 10 years ago. Do you know what number we actually hit in 2010? Do you know what the number was? 366 million. We hit it in 2010. Now, they said in 2004, we would hit 250 million in 2020. We hit 115, 160 million cases more 10 years before they said it, and they were laughed at when they said it. They were laughed at. Medical establishments, alternative doctors, everybody laughed at them and said, oh, we'll never have that many. Well, now China's got 110 million diabetics alone. So do you know what the conservative numbers now, the estimated numbers now for 2020 are? By mainstream diabetes organizations now, do you know what the numbers are? 700 million. There's this amazing organ called the liver, and it processes carcinogenic material in the body, cancer-causing material, pumps it through, puts it into the bowel. If the bowel is going regularly, by the way, regularly is 3 times a day. The human colic gastric reflux is 3 bowel motions a day. 1, 2, 3 every day. 1 meal in, 1 meal out. 1 meal in, 1 meal out. I went 4 times today. That is how good my bowels are working. 4 times, once just out there, right in the men's toilets. Right? So 4 times is a good day, because you know if your bowels are in good shape, the rest of your body generally is in good shape. And we don't talk about our bowels. We don't talk about poos or waste or number 2s or anything. We don't even discuss it as a nation. And yet we should do, and we'll get to that a bit later on as well. Now, I sometimes eat 1 head of broccoli for a snack in the morning. I sometimes eat a morning snack. Oh, some broccoli today. Oh, we'll chop it up on a little plate. Oh, munch, munch, munch. Yum. Why do I eat broccoli? Because I know the sulforaphane in it. I know. There's 82 different studies I've got right here on the laptop that relate breast cancer and bowel cancer being lowered by eating broccoli. We know that. We know broccoli is one of the most powerful members of the cruciferous family, which have the most powerful links to lowering breast cancer in women. And we know the groups of women that eat the most cruciferous vegetables generally tend to have the lowest rates of breast cancer. You know, but most of us think this is regular. You know, we think that's regular. And we think if we go once or once every second day, that's good poo. No, that's not. That's constipation. And what happens if it's blocked here? Your genetic expression is weak. Your probiotic bacteria is weak. It pulls all the way back to your liver. And the liver dictates your skin health and how long you live. So your longevity genes, all of that stuff gets impacted by the gut. This 3-kilo microbiome called your probiotic bacteria in your gut. Your living bacteria dictates your genetic expression. And when you look at that, that's the most important thing. And what have we got? A whole lot of caked rubbish that we can't even get out. Even if we push and we read all the women's weeklies in a year, we still haven't got enough time to get it out because it won't come out because we're so constipated. And here's the thing, you notice how you don't, when your kids come home from school, you don't say to the kids come home, oh, hi, John, how was it at school today? And John goes, oh, it was great, Dad. Oh, excellent. Now, how were your poos today? Did you do 3 good poos today? Were they really easy? Did you just sit down and then a wipe, and it was not sticky, and it was kind of easy, didn't smell that bad? Notice how we don't have those conversations with our kids? Do you know why we don't have those conversations with our kids? Because our parents didn't have them with us. Do you know why our parents didn't have them with us? Because they were all constipated. And do you know why the doctor didn't tell your parents about it? Because all the doctors are constipated as well. Right? Everyone's constipated in New Zealand. Right? And what have we got the number 1 rates of? The number 1 rates of on planet Earth? Bowel cancer. Has bowel cancer got anything to do with movement and a lack of constipation? Yes. What are all the studies in history? All the studies, I've done a blog on this over 9 days of the research. The number 1 links, you look at any cancer organisation on the planet, meat and bowel cancer, the single biggest link. Now, we have the highest intake of meat for women anywhere in the world. We also have the number 1 rates of bowel cancer for women anywhere in the world. Genes require triggers. You control the triggers. That basically says your genetic expression is up to you. And it really is. Because when you look at humanity, you look at how we've evolved in our human history, for 200,000 years, the human genome hasn't changed. For 40,000 years, our DNA hasn't changed. So there's been no change in 40,000 years, at the very minimum, in changes with our genome and our genetics. And yet our disease rates have wildly fluctuated, and they fluctuate all over the world. And what these countries are dying of with the different diets is non-communicable disease, growing in the gut. So when we talk about genetics and we talk about longevity, we look at me as a good example. So I'm born in August 1967. Little Jason Shon Bennett born, 23,688 genes. Little Bubby, really unwell, grows up eating bad food, having medication and Ventolin and drugs, and then getting older, having alcohol and a bit of weed and all the usual things that us Kiwis do, bad food and some more crap and some more rubbish and alcohol and all that. My genes kept expressing as disease. So, asthma, hay fever, colds, flus, bugs, virus. Why? Because I was pounding my immune system, pounding my genetic expression, pounding my genetics, which give me my health. My probiotic bacteria in my gut is being pounded by all this rubbish. How can it give me good genetic expression? So I had all this illness and sickness all this time. Then I go, right, I'm going to make a conscious change. I changed my diet at age 20. I'd start fasting, start changing how much I eat more plants, give away the meat, give away the processed foods and the fried rubbish and all that, increase more fiber, more vegetarian foods, the whole bit. Slowly, over time, my skin heals, my liver heals, my digestion heals, my energy goes through the roof, all the weight drops off. I get all my energy back. And then the asthma goes, the hay fever goes, the colds and flus and bugs all stop. And now, for the last 20 years, I've been living exactly the same way. And here I am now, age 46. Notice my 23,688 genes are exactly the same. So does everyone understand I'm the same Shon Bennett now that I was when I was born back then? You understand that, right? I'm the same genetics. I'm the same person. But my genetics are behaving differently. That's the key. You cannot eat yourself sick and drug yourself well. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. You cannot smoke yourself sick and drug yourself well. It's the same thing, because this is a modern lifestyle disease. With modern lifestyle diseases, you have to eat and live your way into them, and eat and live your way out of them. And that is why genetics gets triggered by diet and lifestyle. The same 170 genes that give you, if you eat less and eat the right kind of foods, 170 genes in the gut will trigger. Those genes that get triggered will give you your longevity or your cell survival, your metabolism, as in how much fat you carry on the human body, your energy levels, and your anti-cancer mechanisms, which is your DNA repair. So those four things, if you're interested in longevity, good levels of energy, good lean body mass, and anti-cancer mechanisms, that's all dictated to by how much you eat and what kind of food you eat. So when you look at it, Africans living in Africa on their natural African diet, very low rates of bowel cancer. Now here's the really interesting thing that I found 2 years ago when I was looking at bowel cancer rates around the world, and then I broke it down into bowel cancer rates by ethnicity in America. So that's looking at all the different bowel cancer rates for the different ethnicities and races in America. Does anyone want to hazard a guess at which race of Americans has the number one rates of bowel cancer of any group in America? Do you know who it is? African Americans, exactly. So hang on, back in rural Africa, no bowel cancer. Move them to America, number one rates of all the different groups of ethnicities in America. They have the number one rates. Now, do their genes change when they get on a plane and they fly over there to make them suddenly susceptible to bowel cancer? No. Well, what changes in the 15 years from when they touch down to where they have the number one rates of bowel cancer? What is the change? Diet and lifestyle, exactly. So you can take people with low levels of bowel cancer and give them high levels of bowel cancer just by moving them to another country on a different lifestyle and diet. Okay, let's break it down and try to find the healthiest group of people in America. And you find them in Loma Linda. Now, more people in Loma Linda, in this little community in Loma Linda, more people there live to 100 than anywhere else in America. This one group of people. And they've tested them. It's nothing to do with genetics. Right? So nothing to do with genetics. It's all about diet, lifestyle, environment. You've got this little group of people in Loma Linda. They have 10 times more people hit 100 than any other group in anywhere else in America. It's 10 to 1 in this one little group of people in the middle of the sickest country in the world. What are the 5 things they don't do in Loma Linda, do you think? I bet you can guess all 5 things they don't do, and they live 15 years longer than anyone without any of the disease. Number 1, what do they not do? Drinking alcohol, right, so no booze. What's number 2? Smoking, they don't smoke. Number 3? Red meat. Number 4? Sugar. Number 5? Takeaways. That's it. You know the other thing they don't do? They don't drink coffee. So would I recommend something? If I was helping transform people's lives, and I do this, I help transform people's lives, get them well, get their cholesterol and their blood pressure down, and get them to lose all this weight and have this long, healthy life. So would I recommend something that raises the number one cause of death, wrecks the number one organ that's going to extend your life, wrecks your ability to get out of bed in the morning and exercise, and removes 4 of the most important vitamins and minerals to the human body? Would I recommend you drink coffee? No. You know, I've worked with people who have emailed me after a year. I've said, look, go off coffee and then email me in a year after you have a couple. They go off coffee, they feel amazing, they become triathletes and do all this great stuff. Then they email me after a year and say, man, I just had my first coffee. You know, I'm trying hard to type to you at the moment because I had my first coffee and I can't stop shaking and I've got my blood racing and my heart's beating. I feel like I'm having a heart attack and I've got a real headache coming on. I cannot believe it. You were so right about coffee. You told me exactly what coffee would do and that's exactly what it did. And I can't even think straight. I can't stop my brain working and I feel completely wild like I'm on some kind of drug, and I actually am, because it's the 3rd most effective drug on the whole planet is coffee. And, you know, I get these emails, seriously, from people whose nervous systems are wrecked with one coffee, because that's what coffee does. But you have to go off it to get the experience. So you have to remove it from the body. And by the way, here's the bad news. It takes 8 days. 8 days to remove caffeine and coffee from the body. You've got to go cold turkey, and it's going to hurt. But when you look at what these centenarians do, they're eating 70% carbohydrates. Now, are the carbohydrates they eat cola and chips and white bread and sausage rolls and pizzas and pastries and chocolates and sweeties? Is that the carbohydrates they're eating? No. Are the carbohydrates they're eating a plant-based whole food diet of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains and legumes? Yes. There's a categorical difference. One has all the fibers, all the antioxidants, all the minerals, all the plant fibers, all the phytonutrition. The other has none. In Okinawa, you get 1 death in 15,000 women of breast cancer. In New Zealand, we have 1 death in 12 women. Now, Okinawa is not that far from us. It's just up the coast. It's just around the corner off the coast of Japan. 167 little islands off the coast of Japan. It's not that far away. But what do they do differently? You can see what they do differently. Completely and utterly and absolutely a different way of relating to everything they do. Now, can we embrace what they do? Yes. Can we get 8 hours sleep a night? Yes. Can we not smoke? Yes. Can we cut our alcohol back or not drink? Yes. I haven't drunk for 30 years. I'm doing just fine. I get on with all kinds of people. I can party with people who are completely drunk. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't have a judgment about people drinking. You know, if people ask me about it, I'll give them the education about how it's going to kill them young and wrinkle them and make them old and sick and tired. But you've got to ask me before I'll tell you that, you know. But here's the thing. They make choices that give them a different experience in life. And I work with people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s all over the world in the life plan and what we do as a company. And I can tell you, when someone gets another 15 years of life, it makes a huge difference. You know, seeing your grandchildren get married is actually what life's all about. It's not actually about having another hamburger. It's actually getting another 15 to 20 years so I can actually see my family and see what happens in life over a long period of time. And I know I work with people in the 50s and 60s, and one of the key things they say to me is, can you give me another 10 years? And I say, well, look, I can give you a great shot at it. I can certainly help you, and talk to you about what you want to do. You're going to have to do the walk yourself. So whether you look at one of the leading experts on the planet right now, or whether you look at studying centenarians over the last 40 years, they're saying exactly the same thing. Now, if you want to eat meat, but don't think you have to eat meat to get iron. That's the distinction. I haven't eaten a single piece of meat for 30 years. That's 30 years. How's my iron level? Through the roof. Whenever I go to give blood, I go along, they prick my finger, they rush off and they do a test for iron, they come running back in, the nurse, your iron is amazing, it's such good healthy blood, I want to suck it all right out of your body. They get really excited. And then they go, and here's the thing, I've never ever experienced this without a nurse saying this to me. They say, quote, you must have just eaten a steak. Can you imagine if that's the wrong thing to say to me? Can you just even imagine? I turn to them and say, look, here's the thing, nursey, here's the thing, right? Sit down, because I'm not giving you any of my blood until we have a conversation about where iron comes from and how you keep iron in the body and how you keep it in the blood, how you have good body levels of iron. Because it's nothing to do with a steak. It's to do with body chemistry and your genetic expression, your probiotic bacteria, your acid alkaline level, how many vegetables you eat that day, how much vitamin C and antioxidants are in your gut. That's what iron levels are about. Nothing to do with meat. So the Cuban people were forced to, A, walk everywhere or bike everywhere. Number 2, grow their own food, which immediately had them eat better quality food, and they had to eat less overall because there was none of food. So 4 things: more walking, growing your own food, less food overall, better quality food. What happened to their diabetes rates as clinically and exactly measured all these years later? It dropped by 50%. 50%. This is annihilating the biggest growth industry of a disease in history. Wham! Wiping it out. Heart disease by 34%, annihilated. And there was an average weight loss of 5.5 kilos right across Cuba. So this is the whole nation losing 5.5 kilos, some people losing a whole lot more. Heart disease, 1/3 of all deaths, not dying, and half of all diabetes deaths, alive, not dead. Now this is a disease that's growing at 1,000% over the last 25 years. And what they did was they annihilated it by half in 4 years. That's how powerful this stuff is. We're built for fasting. When your child is sick, what's the first thing your child does that tells you they're sick? They stop eating, right? They lose their appetite. They go, oh no, what's the first thing a little meow meow and little woofy woofy does when they're unwell? Do they gorge out on their dried dog biscuits, which is part of the problem, by the way, but do they, do they gorge out on all that stuff, or do they lie there and go and ignore their food? That's what they do. All animals do it in nature. You see animals when they're sick, they will find a little space next to a river, hide under some shrubbery so they don't get eaten, and then they sleep there and drink the water, sleep, drink the water, sleep, drink the water, and then when they get up and they're feeling like they're getting well after a few days of water fasting, and they're starting to get well again, they then stand up, and it doesn't matter whether they're a herbivore or carnivore or whatever. What's the first food they all eat? Grass, correct. So water fasting and then leafy green vegetables. Cures most things. Extraordinary, really. Humans are walking around, we're eating food. Rah, 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 rah. Store the excess. Rah, 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 rah. Store the excess. Rah, rah, rah. Store the excess. Then Mother Nature goes, surprise, tsunami. Whoosh. All the food crops have gone, wiped out. No food. Human goes, okay, I'll eat this excess. Oh, more food. Store. Next, Mother Nature goes, volcano eruption, surprise. Food crops gone. Human goes, either fast or die, better fast. And eats all the stored fuel, and that's what it's there for. That's what body fat's there for. It's stored fuel in case there's a famine. And throughout human history, there's always been famine. Have you noticed that? But since the Second World War, there's been no famine. So that's the key thing. We've evolved with famine regularly where we've had to fast. Our genetics keep telling us, you've got to keep eating. You've got to keep eating. You've got to keep eating because there's a famine coming. There's a famine. I know, 200,000 years of evolution. I can tell you there's a famine coming. There's been like a million famines in my lifetime genetically. So it keeps telling us, keep eating. So we keep eating. There's a famine coming. We keep eating. Guess what happens now? No famine. So 1 pound of body fat, 3,500 calories. That's what you're carrying. So if you've got 10 pounds of body fat right now, you can fast for 20 days right now. If you've got 20 pounds of body fat, you can fast right now for 40 days. And your body will go, woohoo, time to fast. Yeah. As you go through next day, the body will just start eating all that fuel. Right? But there's one part of the body, have you ever noticed this, that freaks out the thought of fasting and goes, ah! Have you noticed what part of the body that is? The brain, right up here, right? Because it's a choice. Now we have the choice, and human beings struggle with choice. If you look at a vacuum cleaner, here's a vacuum cleaner. Woo, woo, woo. So imagine the vacuum cleaner. It's working really well. It's a sexy young vacuum cleaner, no problem. Woo, 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 woo. And then the vacuum cleaner gets full, and the filter gets full of dust and dirt. You go, woo, 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 woo. Now, to fix the vacuum cleaner, to get all that dust out and to clean it, do we get some cosmetic ointment and rub it on the handle? Is that what we do to get it well? No, or do we go, right, let's take a look at the engine. We're going to pull out the filter. We're going to clean the bowel. And then we get the filter, we wash the filter, clean out all the muck, put it back in. Do you know what that old rundown vacuum cleaner does when you put a clean filter in and the bowel is clean? Right, it becomes this incredibly young, vital machine all over again. Why? Because the liver and the bowel is clean, right? And we never clean our liver and our bowel. Why? Because we're eating a high meat, high sugar, highly processed, low fiber diet instead of a plant-based whole food diet and regular fasting, which what transforms your genetic expression and your bowel health and your gut health. Because when you fast, of course, your emotions come out. Here's what human beings normally do. We get upset. Here's a human being on a typical day. Seems to be how humans work. I'm upset. I had a breakup with Tracy. I'm heartbroken. I think I'm going to have some celery juice. Do we do that? No. Let's try it again, right? What am I going to do? Eat chocolate, right? Chocolate and sugar if I'm a woman, meat pie and beer if I'm a man, right? And then I'm all, but I'm not happy, I'm numb. That's what I am, right? Numb from the chocolate, sugar, meat pie and beer. That's not happy, that's numb. But that's what we do when we get upset. So when you're fasting, and you're fasting and you get upset, all you've got is celery juice. So it's a different experience. So you've got to warn your friends and family that you might be a little bit. And here's the thing, when you're fasting, no matter what your spouse does, it's their fault, right? And if something happens in the economy and you're fasting, it's their fault, Right? And if something happens with some other country on the other side of the world, it's still their fault. Right? So you'll take it out on your other half, so you've got to warn them, you've got to say, honey, I'm fasting tomorrow. I don't want you to listen to anything I say. I completely love you. Ignore me tomorrow, and we'll catch up on the next day after I've finished fasting. That'll get you through your fasting, no problem, okay?